Let me preface this by saying that my all-time favorite air rifles are the Benjamin and Sheridan pumpers, and especially the 22 caliber Benjamin 342 and early 392 that were made at the Sheridan plant in Racine, Wisconsin. After Benjamin moved there, they bought out Sheridan and they moved operations to the Racine Sheridan plant from their original St. Louis plant. And the ones that were produced there, the 342s and 392s, are my all-time favorite air guns. And an example is this early 392P. Man, I love that air rifle. But at some point, I got into PCPs, and I still prefer the multi-pump over a PCP, but PCP is, I really like them too, and I especially like experimenting with them. And my first PCP, my first 3 or 4 PCPs in fact, were Crossman's, that were Crossman CO2 guns that I converted to PCP. And I also have a QB79 that I don't think I've ever even shot CO2 in it. It was right off the bat, I made it high pressure air. But my all-time favorite to this point PCP gun, though, is another Benjamin. And that is the Marauder pistol. Most people call it a P-rod. Love it. And the thing about it is, you know, you can get more power out of it. And I have a Marauder rifle too. You can get a lot more power out of a Marauder rifle. But they call this the pistol because it's based on a pistol frame, and you can set it up as a pistol by taking the shoulder stock off. But it makes for a pretty big pistol. But, you know, you can still hunt with it and plink with it and everything like that. But I use it with the buttstock as a carbine. And that's my favorite way to use it. And like I said, you can get quite a bit more power out of it. And you can get much more power out of the rifle Marauder. And I have one of those too. But this is so much lighter and more compact. And I haven't even messed with it as far as tuning or anything. Because out of the box, it does right at about 700 feet per second. With a 14.3 grain Crossman pellet. And that's almost exactly what that Benjamin pumper 392 just above it does. And those Benjamin pumpers are very well proven as being game getters. And so in reality, most of them do more like around 650 feet per second, but 650 to 700 is not a huge difference. But the bottom line for me, though, is that the Marauder pistol does that level of performance. Mine does, right out of the box, and I think that's pretty typical of them. And that's a very good power level for small game. So, pretty hard to beat that power level. I don't need any more power out of it for what I do. and it's pretty efficient too. It was down to, I've shot it a few times earlier, and it was down to about 1,200 pounds of pressure, and maximum is 3,000 pounds of pressure. And so, although I have a couple of scuba tanks, I decided to pump it up with my heel hand pump and just see how many strokes it took to pump it back up. And normally I only pump it up to about 2,600 or 2,700 psi, but I reached that from 1,200 at about 35-ish strokes, and I went ahead to 50 strokes just to see what it took me to, and it took me right to maximum. As you can see, let me flip it around so it's right side up. Yeah, as you can see, it's actually, since it's been out in the sun, it's risen a bit further, so it's pretty well into the red, but that'll be okay. So 50 strokes with the pump did that from 1,200. If you run it all the way down to 1,000 psi, 50 strokes would still put it back up into what I would consider the full level. So 50 strokes from what I would consider to be empty to what I would consider to be full. That's not bad at all. And also, out of the box, this had probably the best trigger of any of my air guns. Okay, let's go run a few pellets through it. We'll try some of the 18.3 grain JSBs, which are my favorites. Hope it's still sighted in because I dropped it a minute ago. Yes, it's not still sighted in. Not shooting all that great either. Let me grab a pointer here. Actually, it's not. Let's just take the camera. Yeah. It's quite low. Looks like about 4 inches. So 16 minutes of angle. Okay. Yeah, I had it leaning against the bench a few minutes ago, and I accidentally knocked it over. I don't know if that's what caused it to be so far off, or I might have just been shooting it at much shorter range. Pretty sure I was. I've been shooting it at 10 yards or less, so we'll crank it up and see how it does. Okay, let's discuss what's going on. So I did adjust it. I forgot that this adjustment doesn't have clicks, so I wasn't looking at it. I was listening for clicks, and it doesn't have clicks. But I moved it up, and hopefully I didn't move it all the way up over the paper. But in reality, dropping it probably didn't affect it much, if at all. Although I see a little dirt right here on the side where it hit the ground. But I was thinking about it, and the deal is, for one thing, yes, I believe I have been mostly shooting this at 10 yards or less. So it's going to shoot lower at 25 yards. Actually, this is more than 25 yards. It's closer to 30. But I call it 25 yards because what I usually do is set the target on the ground out in front of the tires. And I'm actually shooting into the ground below the tires. The tires are, for the most part, there to catch strays. But I know I've gotten some negative comments about the tires. But it's alright. I know what I'm doing. You know, that's not to say I won't ever get hit by one, but I wear eye protection, and so, you know, it is what it is. So anyway, I've been shooting it at shorter range, and also something that didn't occur to me until I got back down here and started loading it again is that I'm loading it with the JSB 18.13 grain pellets, which I think I misstated earlier and called it 18.3, so I left out the 1. But it's 18.13, and that's my favorite pellet overall for most of my air guns, and especially for some of my higher powered PCPs, like my Discovery, for example. It shoots those way better than anything else I've tried. But this one, I haven't been shooting with those. This may be the first time I've ever shot any of the JSBs in this, because I've been shooting the Crossman 14.3 grain Premier Hollow Points, CPHBs, and that will definitely make it shoot lower too, shooting a substantially heavier pellet. So anyway, I kind of randomly moved it up, so let's see where it shoots now. it go right a little bit that time. There was another factor too that I forgot to mention. I thought about it when I was over there adjusting the scope and everything, which by the way, I seem to have gotten it just about right. But the other thing is that if you recall, after being in the sun, it was over 3,000 psi. So it was above maximum. And I knew that the pellet would be slower at that kind of pressure, because what an unregulated air gun like this does is that it starts out, as far as velocity, if you're at or slightly above maximum, the pellet starts out slow. As you shoot it, it goes faster and faster. And then, at some point, it starts gradually going back down as you continue to shoot it, because you tune it for a specific pressure, maximum pressure, and so it's going to be, its highest velocity is not going to correspond with the highest pressure. In fact, if you go too high above the set pressure, you'll actually get valve lock, where you'll pull the trigger and it won't even fire. But so being that I was at, after it sat in the sun, I was at about 3,200 psi, it certainly would have been shooting slower, which also would make it shoot lower. So, in fact, let's look at it and see what it is. I looked at it after the first 8 shots, and it was right at 3,000 psi, even though it's in the shade now, and being cooled by each shot. Basic principle of refrigeration, by the way. Okay, so now it should be just about right, because it's at about 2,800. After 16 shots, and that is that's what I like to pump it up to, full charge. So like I said, it was at over maximum, over 3,000 psi, and it dropped to 3,000 psi after 8 shots fired. Let's go look at it. Okay, I'm kind of scattering them a little bit right to left, but I got one in the 10 ring and several in the 9 ring. Actually, I got one in the 10 ring, one cutting the 10 ring, and then several in the 9 ring. And then I had 3 flyers, it looks like. So maybe 4. No, that's not a hole, that's just a, I think what happened is one of the pellets actually did bounce off a tire and come back and hit the paper. But that illustrates what I'm talking about, though, because even being this close to the tire and bouncing back, which by the time it gets here it's probably doing 600 feet per second. And I would say that's probably just about right in the range where it's most likely to bounce off that rubber. Because if you look, there's a whole bunch of them that are stuck in the rubber. So that right there is a 38 special, probably low velocity. There's another one. So, you know, it's probably not as dangerous as some people think it is. I guess it can happen, but as long as you're wearing eye protection, it's probably not going to hurt you. I actually have been hit on the arm or something like that by something coming back, usually something light and small, because the big stuff carries more momentum. So unless it's going really slow, it ain't going to bounce. It's going to stick. Like, see, there's another one. That's a 44 or 45 caliber. And there's one just laying in there. And anyway, let's go shoot some more. But yeah, it was shooting a few inches low because of longer range than normal, heavier pellet than normal, and overly high pressure in the gun. And it's down to, after 16 shots, it's down to about my normal starting point. So about 2,800 psi. Okay, as you can see, I hung one of my steel plate targets beside the paper so that I can shoot it, and hopefully I'll be able to hit it and give an audible indication of the power, because that's one thing about an air gun with an LDC on it, is it doesn't sound like it's packing as much power as it actually is. And in reality, the same is true of my pumpers. If I pump them, say 5 strokes or especially less, and it's most evident at about 4 strokes, because they're already packing a pretty good power at 4 strokes, but they don't sound like it. But they're packing a pretty good punch at that point. So, but the same is definitely true of this, because it has an LDC on it, and from the factory. And so best indication is to see what it sounds like and looks like when it hits a reactive target, like a steel plate. So we're going to do that. And so it has it's dropped about 400 psi in 16 shots. And so that means, I don't remember exactly how many shots I can go at full power on a charge, starting at, 2,800 where it is now. I know I didn't bring enough pellets along to test that, but I think it's at least 32 shots and probably 40 or above. So you can get some pretty good shooting in. And if you bring a hand pump or a pony tank or something to recharge it, then you can shoot quite a bit, especially if you got a hand pump, or maybe one of the little 12-volt electric pumps, and run it off your vehicle. But to me, the Hill hand pump is the best. And it takes a little bit of effort, but like I said before, it goes from what I consider empty to what I consider full at 50 strokes or less. And that's pretty efficient, considering that, you know, even if I'm just plinking, nowhere near this amount of power with one of my pumpers. If I'm just pumping at 3 strokes per shot, oh, it'll take 30 strokes to get 10 shots. So, you know, this is 4 times that. 4 or 5 or 6 times that, actually, with a lot more power. So that's pretty good. Having said all that, let's do some more shooting. Now that's a 1/2 inch thick steel plate, so it's pretty heavy. And it's at about just under 30 yards. Call it 27 meters. I caught that one on the swing back, on the return. Wow, it's still at 2,500. That's pretty good. I'll still do you guys a favor and pause it while I reload. There's a can down there that's bad-mouthing me, I think. Let's teach it a lesson. Oh, I'm shooting over it, I think. There we go. Oh, yeah. We're still at 2,400 PSI. That was 24 shots, either 16 or 24 from 2800 PSI. So I fired 16 shots from when I came up here to down to 2800 PSI. Okay. $16 shots from my overcharge down to 2800 PSI, which is my normal start point. And I have fired either 16 or 24 shots. I don't remember for sure. I think 24. Yeah, I think I fired 8 on the paper and 8 on the steel and 8 on the can. So from 2800, 24 shots, and it's now at 2400. Even if it was only 16 shots though, that's still not bad to still be at 2400 PSI. That means that I've got at least that many more shots before I need to recharge. But we're going to call it good for right now, because I've only got 8 pellets remaining up here, and I really want to reload my magazine and have it loaded on the way back, just in case I'm set upon by any orcs or whatever. So, or any stray cobras that somebody turned loose around here or something. Who knows, man? It's always good to have some lead in the pipe ready to go. So, thanks for joining me. Man, this has been a lot of fun. And air guns, you know, they're cheap to shoot. And I've always been able to find ammo, even when I couldn't find ammo for anything else. And I don't have to wear ear protection. And so, you know, get a couple of friends together and hang around and shoot just about all day. Not spend much money, and you could talk throughout, because you're not always having to take your ear pro off to talk. So, and nobody can even hear you doing it if they're any distance away. So it's awesome, man. Hard to beat. Thanks for watching.